Good morning, YouTube. We are back. We are back. It's your boy Zulu Gutter. Like, share, subscribe. Um, starting the day off extremely early. Top of the morning. Top of the morning. Comment as well. So, a week or two ago, we had this thing called black fatigue being discussed. And, I found it funny that it was being discussed uh, amongst a lot of black content creators, right? I, there's probably some other races, other groups that discuss this, but I just mainly seen black content creators discussing this. Um, I really, honestly, black fatigue. Let's be transparent and let's be truthful. Black fatigue um, has been around for a while. It's been named other things, even amongst our own community, black people. All black people aren't the same. That's what a lot of other groups and people on the outside looking in probably don't understand. Um, they definitely don't. But all black people aren't the same. It's many different types of black people, right? And we get tired of each other, or we get tired of certain types of black people. Um, Me, I can get tired of anybody. Anybody can get on my nerves, and I can separate myself as needed. You know, you got some black people who don't like ratchet ghetto hood black people. You got some black people who don't like what they deem to be boule or traders or Uncle Toms or you know bougie. Um, then you got people that's kind of caught up in the middle because we're all technically African descent, um, if not indigenous. Historically here in America. Um, Nevertheless, we're FBA and ADOS and indigenous and freedmen. We all follow under those banners. Some want to claim Native American. I disagree. I'd rather say indigenous versus that. Um, but I want to talk about how, regardless of dysfunction or what deems to be family dispute within our group, um, I believe it's an injustice. Well, I know it's an injustice and unfair for black fatigue to be something among other groups. Um, and also, as a claim to the system in America, they can't claim black fatigue because everybody has been using us, um, limiting us, and sweeping things about us under the rug. We've been exploited for the longest. And I don't care what anybody says. People try to say that, we're making victimhood claims constantly or whatever. Well, I mean, if the Jews can claim victimhood every fucking year, every day, um, and we went through far more and we received far less in being recompensated, then so the fuck what? And I don't give a shit. Um, and that's on top of a lot of these immigrants. I don't care whether legal or illegal, wouldn't be here if it wasn't for um, our ancestors, descendants, historically here in America, fighting for equality and civil rights and different things. They've completely taken over the Congressional Black Caucus. I don't even know why it's called a Congressional Black Caucus anymore, because it's being taken over by immigrants just as much as the Democratic Party has been taken over by immigrants. You have few spotted immigrants in the Republican Party. And then when you look at Congress, whether the House or the Senate, and you see these new Americans that um, come from other countries have these positions of power. It's all due to, again, the efforts of equality and civil rights that has been demonstrated by black people throughout the decades. And then they turn around and slap you in your face and say that um, you shouldn't receive compensation and reparations like these other groups, and you shouldn't receive aid and funding, uh, educational programs, especially. I'm telling you, there's something going on. I'm in North Carolina. I'm in the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham area, Chapel Hill's where we have this place called RDU. It's supposed to be the new Silicon Valley of the East Coast, right? Every fucking tech company, IT company building is filled with Indians. Duke University, NC State University, and UNC is filled with Indians and Asians. Morrisville is now predominantly an Indian town establishment right outside RDU. And you can't tell me something is going on. And you can't tell me they're not receiving um, special favors and bypasses and discounts. And the black community, the black neighborhoods are disappearing, and these new neighborhoods, townships are appearing with predominantly immigrants, new Americans. And I say new Americans by, assuming that their status is legal, right? And again, via the Democratic Party, not so much the Republican Party, maybe some here and there, and the efforts of inclusion, civil rights, desegregation, um, equal rights from black people historically. Now you have these other groups here. The funny thing is that these other groups stay to themselves. They don't encompass the greater America. And I've been saying that for the longest. There's something real fishy about that. When you start dominating the education system, the job market, you create new townships, and you also have positions in Congress, and these people don't commingle or do anything for all Americans alike, only themselves, something fishy going on. But, you can't tell people that, oh, you're a troublemaker, da-da-da-da-da. No, I'm telling you, if I'm going to be in America, I can't come from my country and build a little mini country in America and only do for people that come from my country. But then, yeah, I want positions of leadership in America. It doesn't work like that because it seems like it's an infiltration, right? Which was going to lead to civil issues on American soil in the future. And y'all mark my words. Same with the Latino community and again, Asian communities. You know, they don't embrace the greater America. And nobody embraces black people. They use the efforts of black people, what black people have put in place um, within the Constitution and legislation, through protests, just constant political um, and legal, issues that revolve around equality and civil rights. They use these things, they get over here, and they stay to themselves. Um, I don't understand how they can represent all the people of America by doing that. You know, they definitely don't hire when they open these businesses and go into these establishments, especially taking positions of leadership. They do not hire in a diverse manner. They hire their own. So you could say black fatigue all day. There could be even infighting amongst black people talking about they're tired of victimhood and they're tired of certain types of black people, hood black people, whatever. At the end of the day, I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter when it comes to other groups using natural selection. And y'all keep that term in mind, natural selection. Um, it's very congruent to racism, you know, and favoritism. It's very congruent. Um, we're the only group that wants to include everybody and wants to get along with everybody. You know, I stop. I don't do that. I treat people as open and good people on a case-by-case basis now. I don't do it all-inclusive anymore because I see that it's not working and it's not being reciprocated. As far as the Jews go, right? You have never forget the Holocaust. There's always some emphasis on Jewish plight, and it's year in, year out, and you better not dare say anything when it doesn't even compare to what the Atlantic slave trade and the colonization of America was and what happened to the Native Americans, indigenous black people, and Africans that were brought here throughout the Americas. It has absolutely no comparison whatsoever. Yet, nothing was ever done correctly or properly toward African descendants being brought here and also the indigenous Africans that was already over here. Nothing has been done, right? On the level that it should have. You know, Jews were given a whole country that don't belong to them. And, you know, when you really sit back and think about who claims to be Jewish, especially these Jewish Americans that really aren't nothing but are Europeans claiming to be Jewish, and then the ones that are over in Israel now, you know, the genetics, the biology doesn't even match between who claims to be Jews here and who claims to be Jews over there. And the original Jews, historically, what you would see described in the Bible, none of it seems to match up, you know, at all. So I'm trying to figure out, excuse me, I'm trying to figure out what are we doing, you know, and I done a response because I got an email talking about the Jewish plight and, you know, it being something that I need to, you know, respond to. I immediately marked it as spam. I don't want to hear no more. I'm over it. Because it's unfair, it's unequal, and it's annoying. Even what happened back to Nick Cannon in 2020, talking about Nick Cannon was anti-Semitic. And this claim about anti-Semitic, I'm gonna have to teach y'all something, man. You have many Semitic groups and languages, and pretty much the majority of them come before Jews. They historically have been present long before Jews. The Jewish language isn't authentic, it is borrowed. And you get pretty much three different variations of it. The first variation comes from Canaanite, descendants of Phoenicians. And Phoenicians were actually more African than what people think. And Phoenician language really came modeled after the Egyptian language. They try to put cuneiform as the first language, and then they put Egyptian hieroglyph as the second language, and then the Phoenician comes as the third. But really, they don't tell you that the Egyptian language actually was the first language. And any dialect that came thereafter was modeled after the Egyptian language. The Phoenician is really an extension of Egyptian. They tried to make the Phoenician be Hebrew, and then they invented Yiddish and Block Hebrew after the Phoenician, right? But in between that, you still had Coptic, which is Ethiopian, which is the second oldest, and then Aramaic comes after that. So, which proves also that Semitic is African in origin. And you had Africans being Semitic before you had anything associated with the Middle East. So by default, Africans are descendants of a Semitic origin. But this anti-Semitic thing, I'm trying to figure out who made Jews the sole representation of being Semitic and the spokespeople for being Semitic. You know, I don't understand it. You know, I mean, the truth doesn't support that. And every time that claim is made, it's like, okay, it's too broad. It's actually untrue. It's actually an inflammation. It's propaganda. And there's already evidence of a clip of the Jewish community being involved in America politically and pretty much saying that they don't support the plight of other people, but only their own. And they use other groups and other people to push their agenda. Even Barack Obama and Angela Rye and black politicians, black leaders were named as in the forefront. And it was also stated that they were restricted from pushing the agendas of their own kind. So, me personally, knowing what I know, you know, you may get annoyed with your own kind at times, the different groups within your own kind, but there's other groups that really don't care about you one way or the other. They push you out of the way. They are in competition with you, and they want you to come up with stuff like black fatigue to keep you from working together as a group in unison and getting back to having your own businesses, neighborhoods, and taking care of each other and having your own representation and leadership. You know, y'all can continue to get caught up in, you know, being dysfunctional and arguing amongst yourselves. And you could think you can come out here in America and be off to yourself and be your own person and say that you're not hood or you're educated and you don't do this and don't do that. That doesn't matter in the end because these other groups are going to smother you out one way or the other. You know, warfare doesn't always involve shooting guns and dropping bombs. You know, you can be beat economically and on paper. So y'all better wake up because it's only going to be more and more pushing you out of the way if you don't smarten up and if you don't learn to tolerate one another and figure out, you know, what to do together in this matter. This is your boy Zulu Gutter. Like, share, subscribe, comment. I will be back with y'all later, and I'm out. Have a good day.